Has he got the link?
I just sent him a video chat. Hey, admit.
Hello.
Oh, hold on, your audio is still connected. There we go. Hiya, man.
How are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Nice to finally see you and talk to you.
Totally, man. Like I said, I've been a bit paranoid. I've not really done something like this in many years, but it's like really good to actually see you in the flesh. You know, you've had some really interesting ideas, like I've spoken to you about, and it's just nice to finally get some, further understanding, some clarification, help you spread the message and
Yeah,
whatnot.
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, it's just going to be chill rather than an interview. But like I said first, it's just speak about yourself, man. I want to get to know you. You know, your age, how you came to be, all that kind of good jazz.
Well, I'm 55. I've been sectioned 3 times under the Mental Health Act. 1998, 1999 and 2002. I've got a daughter and a grandson from a failed relationship in the 1990s. I've been on benefits now since 1998. Obviously, that's the first time I got sectioned.
Mm.
So that's one of the main reasons. I mean, one of the main reasons for me actually publishing my website and the book was because I've been on benefits for so long, and I ended up thinking there must be a better way for people.
Mm.
So the financial idea of the book is the mainstay of the book, I'm hoping to say. I mean, there are a lot of other ideas on there. I know there are, and I was basically asked by a number of people to give my two penneth worth to the world about what's happened to me and what I think about it and things like that.
Yeah, that's no, totally, man. I feel that. Like I said, I've been on universal credit for a while now. I've only just been put on, like, due to my mental health as well. I'm not allowed to work anymore, so I've been stuck on like a kind of really low pay for like months and months and months, and it's absolutely agonizing. So I think it's something that I related to when I first came across your page is that there are a lot of people who are suffering, and even with a system like universal credit in place, it's not really giving people the basic needs to be who they are and do what they want. They kind of get stamped, and that's what's kind of held back.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, if you look at the Western world now, the vast majority of the people in the Western world, and I'm talking the vast majority of them are in debt or
Yeah,
in poverty. I mean, and quite a large percentage of people now are in poverty. And then if you look at the developing countries, there's people starving, people suffering from poverty, there's corruption, there's financially based crimes in the Western world and in the developing world.
mhm.
All these factors have basically made me publish. So
Okay, cool. No, 100% understandable. A lot of people don't seem to look into it, and it's a shame. And I think that's another good thing about this. It's not just, you know, ideas, it's taking your understanding of having been in that position and publishing it to the world. And I think that kind of leads me on to the point is like, what is Alien GG7 for the people who don't know?
the alien GG race, according to me, and like I say, the financial idea in the book is what I'm trying to get across. Anything else, I guess people will take with a pinch of salt. But that's the idea. It's like a lot of books have been written that people were supposed to be believing, but they've taken them with a pinch of salt. So my ideas will be taken the same probably. But the alien GG race is a one-eyed extraterrestrial. It basically like the Cyclops from ancient Greece. It just has one eye.
Mhm.
Um, the alien GG race are extraterrestrials as opposed to extraterrestrial, and the extraterrestrials are the race responsible for creating stars, galaxies, planets, and all the inherent gump that goes inside the void, because the alien GG race comes from outside the void.
So are the Alien GG created by what you call the creator being, or how would you describe that?
Well, the creator being is quite a difficult subject because to imagine something so powerful to to manifest itself as one being is some people would find quite difficult to take, especially with some of the modern teachings about how people network and I'm talking about a network by being other people and things like that. And this was led to me through a book called The Illuminati Trilogy by Robert Heinlein. No, not Robert Heinlein. I can't remember the author's name offhand. But this was led into my life when I was about 23. And it's like people inhabit people, people use people do things like that. So the creator being actually being one being is probably beyond some people's imaginations. But I believe the creator can manifest as an individual being. And the GG7, the 7 is, I mention it in my website. I don't think it's in my book, but I mention dimension 7.
Okay.
Which is called dimension 7 because the symbol that stands for it looks like a 7. It isn't actually dimension 7 because there's too many dimensions to number them basically. But dimension 7, we'll call it for want of a better word, it's where the magma comes from.
Right.
It's like you have all these theories about how the world formed, and most modern scientists think it formed through gravitational fields and a bunch of asteroids clanging together. But that's not the case. The magma came first and formed the globe, and then the globe actually crusted over, and with a little bit of creator being alchemy, the soil was formed, and then life was born. But that is only one way of creating a planet, I hasten to add. There are other ways of creating planets, but those planets, like I've said in my website, tend to cool down quicker.
Totally. Well, I've got a few questions. Like I said, this isn't not all on the whole main idea of the money, but I've got some further questions along those lines later on. But I just wanted to jump back to, like you said, you want to promote this idea of having too much money to spend. So the figures that you mentioned are 80 and 800 million, and why is that?
I started off at 80,
Uh-huh.
and I end up thinking, well, £80 million in your average person's pocket is too much to spend in a lifetime. But then I ended up thinking, well, if people get used to spending money, 80 million quid could be spent quite quickly. I mean, there are cases of people winning that much on the lottery and being skint presently. So I end up thinking, well, okay, then let's increase it to 800, because I've got a bit of a fixation with the number 8.
Right.
The number 8, if you think about it, is the symbol for infinity, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted a figure 8 in the number that we were going to have, in the number that I put forward. So I decided £800 million. And if it was the equivalent to £800 million sterling to spend in the UK, the average person, unless they're going to go silly and buy £100 million houses, which I don't think there is a £100 million house on this earth, not a house standing on its own, in grounds perhaps, but not a house standing on its own. So therefore, £800 million would possibly last people a lifetime, even if they went mental spending.
Speaking of the number 8, there's a chapter Earth in the book, and you mentioned something with the digit 777. It's there have been 777 generations, by which I mean civilizations on this planet. I was just wondering if you could elaborate and explain that further.
Well, this is the thing. It's like this Earth, we are told, is 4.3 billion years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of worked this out, but I'm using my instinct as well, because this is the aeon that we are living in at the moment is a quite significant aeon. It's called the sixth sun in the Andes, the aeon of the sixth sun, and it's a time of great change. It's a time of we're breaking out of certain karma cycles and things like that. And I believe that even the creator being might have been within those karma cycles. So, but 777 is 700. I believe there have been 777 generations, because 3 sevens are 21. This is the 21st century, and the creator being likes to play with numbers. So this would actually make sense in a way. I mean, I know it seems like a bit of what's the word? A bit of a tenacious. No, not tenacious. That's the wrong word. A bit of a slight connection, shall we say? But it's like slight connections can do all sorts of things in reality. We all know that.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially with numbers.
Totally. Numbers are such a constant staple when it comes to a lot of these things. I only recently started looking at them, but it's quite mind-boggling when you start to understand these things that repeat in natural life and how it goes a lot further.
The Fibonacci sequence and so on.
Sorry?
The Fibonacci sequence and so on.
Yeah, that's, well, I've got a dream house that I want to build, and some of the major schematics of it are the Fibonacci scales and things like that.
That's interesting. You're going to have to send me some designs if you ever get around to planning it.
Well, I'm doing the lottery tomorrow night, so you never know.
Yeah, too right, for sure. Another thing I wanted to talk about as well is you speak about drugs and cannabis specifically. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a major advocate for it. You know, I think it could replace a lot of plastics. It can fuel cars and stuff.
The list is endless. You can eat it. You can make fuel for cars. You can make house bricks. You can make clothes. You can use it for medicine.
Totally.
The fact that it's been illegal is just the biggest farce of the 20th century, I think.
Totally, and obviously, like I said, with mental health and such, it's like when you look at the small amount of research that has been done, it's absolutely incredible the things it can do to a person naturally. And I think it's like absolutely ridiculous, especially in the UK, that it's suppressed as heavily as it is. Yet you see people with seizures, for example, getting administered a small dose, and that's them sorted.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just wondering, like,
basically, I didn't catch the comment. I basically, because I'm not at work, I tend to watch the House of Commons a lot.
right,
I did catch the debate on cannabis, and they were making some quite positive noises, which I was quite pleased to hear.
oh, stunning! Yeah, there's a huge.
I do attempt to put subtle pressures on the government from my own individual perspective, shall we say?
Yeah, right on, man. The same. Speaking of plants, you were talking about Africa as well, and how you feel it would be a great place to kind of get almost a world garden going. I was wondering how you came to that idea and how you'd go about doing it if you had like the expense to do so.
If the money was available, if we all had £800 million sterling each, and the governments had the money, then there are forms of desalination available now, which are a lot cheaper and a lot less intensive than they used to be. So taking water out of the sea and piping it across land, desalinating it and putting it into the ground in places like in arid parts of Africa would bring them back to garden form quite quickly. And it's like basically my dream for Africa and Asia is that these people will get the same sort of choice of food as we do in Europe, because we are so lucky in our choice of food in the supermarkets. And one of my dreams is that my African and Asian brothers will be able to get that kind. I mean, one of the punchlines I used in one of my early videos. I don't know if you've caught up on. It will probably have to be Twitter. You'd have to catch up on to find that one. But I actually said I'm not stopping this campaign until there's branches of Waitrose in Africa.
Right on, man. I like that, for sure. How do you feel about, well, I'm thinking of one as well, speaking of Asia as well, it's coronavirus at the moment, a bit of a pandemic, it's all about up in arms and stuff. What are your thoughts on it? Because, you know, a lot of people are quite divisive, there's opinions left, right and centre, but I feel like you have quite an understanding of, you know, what goes on and stuff, so I just kind of would love to hear your thoughts on it, how you feel it's affecting us.
My understanding of coronavirus is, A, it's a deadly virus. But B, I believe in divine inspiration and divine intervention and things like that. And I believe each death has been targeted to remove a vile system of work that was in existence on this earth. And I also go into some, not very great detail, but some detail about something that was removed one rather dark, stormy night, which had been causing divisiveness in families, schools, religions, countries, armies. It had been causing divisiveness in all these things, and it had been doing it for quite a long time. It was an evil influence, and it was removed one night, or last year or the year before.
Right.
And now it's a case of picking up the pieces from the divisiveness that we've learned from that particular being and we've got to pick up the pieces and heal ourselves and make ourselves into the state where we don't do that kind of thing anymore, where we teach ourselves that that kind of thing is wrong, and the teacher that brought those teachings was wrong.
Too right. I think the big teaching that's wrong as well is like you also touch on war, and I've also found that interesting. You spoke about how if this money was given, you would have a zero stance effectively on any harming, like such things as war. You would refuse a budget towards it. How?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just about to say, like, I'm obviously against war. I'm a pacifist myself, but I was curious on the fact is, if for some reason there was a form of terror that was being acted upon a country, how would you go about solving that if your stance was kind of zero funds allocated?
Well, there are means of detecting these people. I mean, there are means on the surface of everything, of detecting these people, just straightforward detection work. But I think spiritually guided people will be able to pick up on these people a lot quicker than the government agencies do at the moment. And it's like, if the situation was to come together where these brothers and sisters who are radicalized at the moment saw that there were alternative teachings to what they've been learning about, if the world was setting an example to them, that there was a way where they could study their religion, where they'd be free to study their religion, hopefully they would choose to lay down their arms, hopefully. But if there was a way they could study their religion and not be persecuted for it, because one religion persecuting another, this is one of the things this evil thing that I've just been talking about was doing. It was dividing religions. It was setting religions against each other.
You say that each religion is the same path to enlightenment, just different aspects. What do you mean by that as well?
Each religion is a path to a different form of enlightenment, which God actually created for us to experience. And God has experienced all these enlightenments, him or herself. And then those enlightenments have been left behind for us to experience ourselves. And for us to draw our own conclusions and to give feedback, so that, I mean, I believe everything was thought of. I believe the Big Bang was an idea in the consciousness of the creator being, so to speak. Because if you think about our consciousness, an idea in our consciousness is a bioelectrical explosion, biochemical electro explosion. Even if you say it's two nodes meeting together, it's still an electrical explosion. So if you can imagine a creator being a supermassive being, then an idea in that consciousness could be as massive as the Big Bang. And I believe in the Big Bang, if it actually existed, and I'm saying it because people still doubt, and people can doubt whatever they want to, really, because of the nature of free speech. But I believe everything was thought of. So the only true nature of freedom is to take the ideas that creator being thought of ourselves and for us, and take those ideas and create things ourselves with those ideas.
It's an interesting point, right on. God, that's got me thinking now.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, too right. Your ideas as well about higher beliefs and stuff is they kind of align with some of the Masonic believings, and I was just curious if there was anything that was related to, Masonic beliefs or along those lines within your book or within your beliefs.
I've never been a Mason or an Illuminati, although I've been approached by supposed Illuminatis on the internet for the last 5 or 6 years apparently.
Interesting.
And it's like I've had a number of supposedly Illuminati members saying that I give off a quite highly charged energy. So I'll accept that as a blessing or a compliment. Although they keep on asking me for money for things to complete my initiation, which has varied from $120 to $380, and I'm a poor person, I can't afford those. And then they say that I could maybe receive gifts of money, and I'm saying, well, how are they going to do that when I'm living in a country where there's a tax system? If I suddenly put $500,000 in my bank account, I'm sure I would be under the investigation of the tax office, and they don't seem to understand that.
Ah, right on. Ah, that's bizarre. See, I've never heard of people being approached and, offered money to an
Masonic symbolism. Masonic symbolism is all to do with magic, ritual magic mostly.
Yeah, totally. Like, what's the term I'm looking for? Sigils and stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't know much about it because I tend to draw on the elements for my magic.
Oh, so elements instead of sigils. How do you go about doing that?
That's something I can't quite discuss yet because I'm not quite sure how I do it, but it works.
No.
You should send us something else.
I think to a certain degree, I'm protecting myself from. It's like I became aware that there are evil, malign spirits and things like that, and I'm to a certain degree, because I don't bring it into the forethought of my consciousness. I'm protecting myself, and I'm stopping bad influences getting hold of said magic that I have. By using my will rather than my conscious mind, because my conscious mind does tend to get a bit confused and distracted sometimes.
If you have any drawings or such, could it be too much to ask to possibly send some after this course finished? I'm really interested in that kind of stuff, and I think it'd be interesting kind of understanding how it works for you.
And your thought process towards putting those together.
Well, I don't have any drawings. I'm trying to get round to doing some paintings because I've got quite an individual style.
All right.
But I still haven't got around to doing it, and it's like I'll tell you the main when I read a book about astral projection.
Okay.
And how you had to surround yourself with the 7 archangels for protection of your body and your astral personality. And there were all these really difficult names to read. And I suffer from schizophrenia, so I tend to be a bit forgetful sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I end up thinking, well, I can't remember all these names of archangels. I'm just going to protect myself with the elements. So there I went about imagining earth, air, fire, water around my head.
Right.
And then from that point on, I seemed to gain protection from the elements. It was quite strange. And then I imagined the astral above me and sound below me.
How do you feel it's impacted your life doing so?
Doing what, sorry?
Like all these kind of like protection sigils and stuff. Do you feel like they've had like a really almost significant?
Yeah, I've come back to myself. I don't know whether that was the natural progression or whether it was the fact that I actually started to protect myself from the things that were. I have to say it. They were probably attacking me, and I don't like saying it because I don't like making enemies because. Well, for obvious reasons, nobody likes making enemies, do they?
Of course.
And it's like if they're doing it from a distance and not showing themselves to me, then they're going to make an enemy of me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to make any idle brags about anything, but
no,
that would be pretty sad.
Spot on, man. There's only a few more things I think I've got left to speak about, but I think one of the things I also wanted to touch on was the idea of solar politics.
Right. You know how many moons are occupied in the solar system by extraterrestrials?
No, I don't.
At least 13.
Okay. Quite a big.
So basically, there are a number of races that have emissaries in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the nature of. I don't know. I might be cocky enough to say that actually, because of the nature of my writing. Because I'm actually writing about things that have been unknown for a long time, and certain of these beings realise that the things that are coming through on the planet Earth. I mean, in my website, and in my book, I actually announced the new age of enlightenment.
Right.
And I've seen a lot online about how people are starting to believe that the biggest mass awakening on planet Earth that's ever happened is actually happening at the moment. So And these things are all falling into place. When it comes back to the age of the sixth sun from the Mayan and the Inca aspect of things, and it's breaking. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk about in this interview was deconstructionism in religion, and how women. I stand for women's rights quite severely. Because I love my mother, I love my sister, I love my daughter. If any harm came to them, I would hate to see it. And my dad and myself have always treated them as equals. A lot of men, due to the way religion has been taught, don't treat women as equals. I mean, you can see it in Islam, in Afghanistan at the moment.
Yeah.
They're being a bit naughty there, and they shouldn't do that because it's wrong. I mean, they've all got mothers and sisters, for heaven's sake, so surely they can see. But they're all indoctrinated. I mean, Islam is quite possibly the worst religion for doing it, but Christianity, for quite a few centuries since Christ's name has been used to uphold a patriarchal system that doesn't actually stand for the true work of Jesus Christ. So.
Yeah, definitely. I feel
a lot of deconstructionism going on at the moment in various circles.
Yeah, you're right. How did you come to, I don't want to say know this, but how did it come to fruition? What were your thought process in getting to this point of understanding?
Cannabis, magic mushrooms, intelligence, a little bit of private investigation. I had a point of enlightenment on magic mushrooms one night. I took some psilocybin magic mushrooms from Wales, and I was sitting in my living room, and I was feeling uncomfortable. So I went and lay down on my bed upstairs. And when I lay down on my bed, somebody whispered into my ear, and I don't know if it was my mate. It was my mate's voice, but this is when things started to get a little bit strange for me. But what happened was somebody whispered in my ear, and in the beginning, God intended a perfect world. And the voice inside my head, which was there at the time, and I haven't heard a word from since, said, "Who am I then, God?" But I was thinking it. But I put a question mark in there because it's like for somebody like me to think something like that, something must have been going on.
Yeah.
Now it's like a lot of the stuff that I've come up with, I haven't read it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all come from my imagination and from things that I understand. It's like a lot of what I've written makes sense, I've been told.
Right.
Now it makes sense because I've made sense of it as I've written it, and nearly everything that I've written, I know as fact because I've experienced it.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Now understanding that and actually reading the book, seeing a lot of it, like, so to say, makes sense is quite impressive, I think.
Like, we've definitely come to realise a lot of the things that you've been reading about in your book, or writing about in your book, sorry, which is why we found it so interesting to ourselves personally, this idea of personal truth and all that.
Well, so you've experienced the things that I'm writing about yourself. So I'm writing about things that you've experienced.
Yeah,
we've had our own personal enlightenments over the last few years that have led us to believe a lot of the same things that you do.
Right, Sam, that's cool then.
Yeah, totally. It's
not. Well, this comes back to what I mentioned about the mass enlightenment of the earth and things like that.
The Great Awakening.
This is a very great time to be alive on Earth. And it's like a lot of the people that have passed and gone will actually return as children, I believe myself.
Yeah, the idea of an ever-being consciousness.
But I mean, when I wish to myself, when the voice in my head said to myself, "Who am I then, God?" I actually saw a blinding flashing light, and I saw what I considered to be everything. It was the most peculiar experience I've ever had. And then I blanked out. And I don't know how long I was blanked out for, but when I woke up, I sat up in my bed, and everybody in the house was in my bedroom, sat staring at me.
Oh, sounds interesting. That's nuts, man. That's nuts.
But whatever happened that night, I'm not sure, but nobody's ever told me, so...
Yeah. maybe you'll never need to know. It sounds like something clicked in you, I think, man.
Well, yeah. If
Right.
I found myself, if I found myself, it's no wonder I shot myself later. And I have physically shot myself twice at my physical responsibilities on this earth.
Mm-hmm. Too right. Well, I've got no more questions left, so I guess what I really want to ask to end it all is, what is your end goal for all of this? And if you want to promote anything, man, you've got as much time as you need to.
And is there anything you would like to say to people that might be watching this?
Right, my website is called aliengg7.co.uk. Please check it out, it's free. There is a book available called aliengg7.co.uk, the first chapters, A Philosopher's Dream 114, which is available for sale, and there's merchandise on the site as well. But if the sale of the book, the reason I actually published the book is because I lost quite a few friends recently. Because I'm 55 years old, I've lost quite a few friends recently, so I ended up thinking, but if I passed away, my idea would, the website would come down, my idea would pass away to nothingness. So what I want to gain from the interview is to try and get a few more people to hear the financial idea, because I believe it's an attainable attempt at a utopian future for the whole planet. I mean, I'm not asking these rich people to give their money away to poor people. They can keep all that money they've got. I don't care. I just want all the poor people and the debt people and all those people to have money as well.
Yeah.
And then everybody, once they've got money, then we have choices then. And hopefully, if people can see the good in themselves, the world would choose to work for itself, to work for a society that we can all be free, that we can all be equal, that we can work. I mean, I've got ideas about small communities and how small communities would thrive if this money was available to people. And it's like, I've got an idea of how the local council in a small community, when everybody gets up in the morning of a weekday, when it's working day, we all collect, everybody who's available for work collects in the hall or whatever it is, and each person is allotted a job. So everybody has multiple skills and tasks, but we fulfill jobs in our community. And my publisher actually said, if this idea went global, it would actually change the world. And my publisher is quite keen on making my book a success. And this is a money-based publisher. Then I won't say they've gone so over the top that they've given me freebies, because they are a money-based publisher. So. But and then there's one of the things we haven't mentioned is the fact that I mentioned a new world, and I've seen a new world in the sky, and I know a number of other people have done. So I know there is a new world in the wings for the human race, but the human race, in the meantime, has got to work out how to manage the planet. It's like everybody's going on about reducing emissions and all that kind of thing, and that's not what we've got to do. We've got to learn to live with our creations, with our luxuries, but at the same time manage the planet so we can live with them, so it doesn't end up killing us. So everybody's actually missing the point, really, by saying reduce emissions to zero carbon. All that's going to do is make the air a little bit different. But we're all creative. It's like if this money was available, we'd all be creative. Instead of being destructive, we'd be creative. We'd be building. We'd be having companies for ourselves. There'll be more art. There'll be more music. Hopefully, there'll be more poetry. And that's just one of the positives I can see coming out of it.
Too right.
Beautiful.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for doing this with me. I heavily appreciate it, my man.
Thank you. You've got some beautiful words. It's been a lovely, lovely thing to hear you explain your ideas in person. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm sure we'd love to speak to you again sometime.
Thank you. That'd be great. Anytime you want to. And if you can let me have a copy of the interview, I'll be publishing it. I'll put it on Instagram probably, and I'll put it on Twitter, and then I'll put it on my YouTube channel.
Stunning. I'll get a file.
I haven't got many subscribers. It's like what I need is a business manager, because I'm not the most business driven of people. So to get this message, I'm plugging away as best I can. I mean, I'll tell you something now. I don't know whether to be paranoid about this, but I was plugging my idea on my DK Greenaway Instagram account,
Hmm.
And I had an advertising account, and the numbers on my DK Greenaway account were literally going up hundreds every day with my advertising. And then for some reason, Instagram blocked my advertising account.
Mm.
Now, I didn't know whether to be paranoid about that, whether it's the rich people trying to stop me, or whether I'm just being paranoid. I'm not really sure.
It's an interesting.
But the numbers were increasing at almost an exponential state every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's fishy.
Well, here's the
It is a
book
bit
everywhere.
fishy, isn't it?
No, too right. Well, I'll send you a copy. Like I said, I'll send you an edited one and I'll send you the full one, and you're free to use them however you want, man. They're all yours to go nuts with.
Can I ask you what you're using it for?
Me? Well, I used to work in radio. I have a degree in it and everything, and I've ever since being kind of like mentally ill and not being able to work, I've not been able to use any of my degrees or my talents. So I've just been kind of scouring the internet and finding people who have totally interesting and new, I'd say, kind of not revolutionary, but just vibrant ideas. Totally. I want to explore the people that get suppressed, the people who think creatively and actually want to make a change in this world rather than politics and whatever shit's on the TV.
Well, you've been driven down a road you'll enjoy more than the corporate situation you would have been in.
Yeah, totally, man. As much as it's been hard, I think it's a blessing, and I think this is what this interview is signifying for me. It's a start of something new, you know.
Yeah.
So that's no personal gain or anything, man. I'm just curious kid trying to figure out the world.
You have to document.
Well, if the book makes it, and you've got the first interview with me, and you can have copyright on this interview for all I care. And as long as you let me, and then basically maybe if I become famous, you can sell it in a few years and make your fortune out of it.
That's the idea. Well, thank you very much, man. I hope you have a lovely night, and cheers again for doing this. It's really appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you for showing interest, Lemmy.
It's all right, man. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.